my crafty friends, it's Sharon Luska here from My Crafty Greetings, and we're going to do a Scrappy Tales video today. But first off, I'm going to tell you some awesome surprising news. I got the sale held over to July 26th for the Christmas in July, which is 20% off all the Christmas products. So that will be down below. I'll also link the video that shows all the great cards and all the products that I use to make all those awesome Christmas cards. If you thought you missed that Christmas sale, you sure haven't. It's a terrible pun. Sure haven't. I have this awesome anchor die set here, and I have die cut myself from a wood grain pattern paper this beautiful anchor, and it is a nice big size. It is sized so that it takes up a 5x7 card easily, but it will also fit on your note cards as well if that's what you'd like to do. But it is a beautiful layering die, and the effect is fabulous. But my point being is, have you thought about cutting some of your different die cuts in wood grain? Wood grain can have a fabulous effect for changing a die cut, changing something that's more masculine to a little softer and more possibly feminine, or taking something more feminine and changing it to be slightly more masculine. Now, this is a great advantage when you're specifically making sympathy cards. Sympathy cards can be tough because you may be giving a sympathy card to a female who's lost a male companion, or a male who's lost a female loved one. Regardless, we need to start off with a sentiment, and I like this new set that Sabrina's designed. It's a 5x7 shell frame with tons of extra shells and with heartfelt sympathy, including the shadows, and that would easily make its own very wonderful sympathy card. Now, this itself also could be a wonderful sympathy card just as it is, and I'm going to show you a few stopping points along the way. But first, I'm going to show you this inspirational piece of pattern paper that I'm using to help me design this card. And it comes from this particular sea glass paper pad, which was also the source of the wood grain paper that I used to cut my anchor from. So I've got these flowers that reminded me so much of the flowers in the paper, and they're from the Perfume bottle die that Sabrina had designed, and this Perfume bottle would be fabulous as a sea scene bottle as well if you had thought about it. But one of the things that I like about these gorgeous little flowers is that they have a side view and a dead-on view, so kind of a half flower and a full flower, and the most delicious little centers you've ever seen. The other thing I found is that you really can't combine these four die cut pieces to make the flowers any way you want. But one of the things that really brings these flowers to life is if you take a little bit of alcohol marker and you add some stroke lines just for some extra detail and dimension to those ruffled petals. Now, whether you use a warm colored gray or a cool colored gray, either would do just fine, and I'm actually combining both here today. Once I've got those done, I like to arrange them the way that I think they're going to look best, and then I basically pinch them and just squeeze a dollop of glue right behind. To give them a little bit of fine tuning, I also like to pop in and just add a couple extra strokes so that where they've lined over top of each other, that it really makes a full circle of dimension. I have these cute little centers that I was talking about, and I'm popping them into the flowers, and then I'm also going to make some leaves to go with this composition. And I didn't want them to be this bright kind of green that I've chosen without dimension. So I'm going to add a little bit of gray over top, and it's not going to look great. It's going to look green. This is also on sale, 20% off the assorted Christmas leaves. Once it's got that subtle dimension on it, it looks great. And here again is another spot where we could stop. We could add the sentiment here, any type of sentiment that you like, and the card would be fabulous just as it is. I have some homemade packing foam sheets here that I've turned into foam tape by adding heat adhesive to both sides. And you could see in the center there that there's a much more narrow piece on the center flower than on the other two. And that's so that it can actually fit in between. I have this anchor attached here, and I wasn't quite convinced that I liked how flat the background was. And I think I have a problem leaving things alone. I don't know if you guys suffer from that too, but sometimes when I'm making something, I'm sure there's lots of you that are saying, Sharon, it looks just fine. And I don't know why I needed to add something to it. I wanted to add a little extra texture and dimension to the outside edges of this. And I thought dotting a little bit of this Hero Arts knit pattern around would help to do that, as well as adding some chipped sapphire just ink blended into those edges. And I do like it. I think in the end it gave it some extra depth. Maybe it wasn't necessary, but made me happy. We could have stopped here and added a sentiment, and we are going to put heartfelt sympathy on here, or with heartfelt sympathy on here. Don't feel that you have to go with die cut sentiments either. If you prefer to stamp and cut a little banner to put over top of your cards, you do whatever makes you happy. But you can see this composition here would have been absolutely fine with just the leaf and the anchor and the sentiment. And I'm going to add the flowers. I'm giving them a little zhuzh by just pinching those pieces of paper that make the petals of the flower, and that's going to help it stand up a bit, as well as the tiny thin layer that packing foam is going to add to it. Now the card would have looked fabulous with just the flowers, the one leaf, and the anchor, as well as the sentiments, and I'm adding more foliage to this, and the choice is entirely yours how much you want to embellish this card or not, but I wanted to put lots of greenery on mine. I always find that well, I feel that green on sympathy cards is a very positive thing, and maybe that's why I like putting leaves on sympathy cards so much, but I just think it adds a level of serenity to it. And I didn't think that I was completely done with the card here, although it looked very nice, but I did decide to take this A7 rope cover plate die, and I just cut rope sections from it so that I could add that to the top and bottom of my card, and then I cut it back a tiny bit so that it would have a reveal to the white card base that I had, and there we go for our first card. A first card, but hopefully you got lots of different ideas from it for how far you could or you don't have to go. And I did give you a few extra shots here so you could see the different coloring depending on the light. Now, this A7 layering butterfly, I absolutely love this die, and it is great not just for female cards but for masculine cards too. And I wanted to show you this die cut out of wood. Most people would not expect a wooden butterfly, and I surely decided it was something we should try. And of course, I am having butterfingers in the craft room today. That slippery little sucker just kept flying all over the place. But I did get some ink blending done to just define the edges on this card panel that I have here. As well, ink blending in a same color as the base color of your pattern can really help knock back the intensity or the focus on the pattern. My inspiration, as well as the wood grain pattern that made the butterfly, came from this paper pad. I love this paper pad so much and find it so inspirational. I previously did a video on how these cut aparts can be cheat sheets for layouts for cards. I also showed how to take these daisies and make them with watercolors. I'm going to be using a lot of these ideas again in this card, as well as the extra flowers that I had left over from that adventure with watercoloring. If you want to check it out, I'll put it up here. I've pulled out my fingertip brushes that are from Amazon, and I'm going to be coloring the body of this butterfly. Although I cut it in black or graphite shimmer paper, I'm going to be putting some brown on it so that it actually has some harmony with the rest of the butterfly. These brushes are fantastic because they don't damage delicate die cuts. Now I've put a little bit of ATG tape on the back of the adhering portion of the butterfly detail wings here, and I'm going to put some Tombow Mono Multi on the body and the antenna of my butterfly. So I'll set that aside to dry, and while that's happening, I'm going to take these sentiments and separate them out from their beautiful shadow background. It spells the scripty word hope, and I thought that would be something great to spread across the wings of this butterfly. Just like the rope that I showed in the first card, this also comes from the rope cover plate die set. It is an A7 rope cover plate, and it has some gorgeous sentiments included. My favorite one being the thoughts and prayers, but I'll be using that in another video. Now I've also pulled out my Gina K Sympathy and Love stamp set. This scripture quote is a winner with the word hope and really expands the use of this card beyond just loss or sympathy. And whoo, brand new stamp, and I managed to get it on without having to redo my base. I'm going to put a little ATG on my butterfly to make sure that it's stuck in place firmly, and I'm going to take the first element and stick it on. And you can see here there are certain spots that we could easily stop with this card. We could leave it with the greenery and no flowers. We could leave it with the single flower and a little bit of greenery. Or if you want to, you can absolutely load your butterfly up like I'm going to do. These were so fun and easy to make with my watercolors and just white, Nina Solar White die cuts. They were only 80 pound, but they all came together beautifully, and I've kept a load of these in my stash just for quick cards to make. And I love how they come together, and especially how they work with that wood grain. And this is something that makes the butterfly less feminine and more something that you can give to just about anyone under any circumstance. I'm going to just add some shimmer pen to the Hope word, and I'm actually going to do 2 layers. I don't know if you've ever realized this or not, but when you let your shimmer pen dry and then you add a second layer, it will intensify the shimmer. I'm going to take this and add it to my card base, and you may notice that I have a reveal at the top and the bottom, and that's because I went ahead and trimmed a little bit off. I don't know why I'm in this mood of just nipping bits off the top and bottom, because I'm feeling that my cards are not balanced the way I'm putting them together. I will get into that in a later video. I know there's lots of things that happen when we look at cards and things don't quite look right, and it's always good to have a backup plan of how exactly to fit those things. Now that good thick layer is going to help stick that hope on there for me, and I think this card is done. Thank you so much for joining me today, and if you haven't subscribed, I sure do hope you would. Give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment. I do read them all, although sometimes I get distracted and don't get a chance to respond. And don't forget that sale's on until midnight on the 26th. Have a great day, and thanks for joining me. Bye!